Welcome to She Sells Radio. We are diving deep today into the prosperity law of circulation. And this is such a powerful one to unlock and unblock any sort of kinks in the money hose. Were it to speak? That's not a real saying or expression. So to speak. There we go. We go. I took my son to gymnastics this morning. Can you tell I haven't had a lot of real adult conversation yet today? I've been pushing stuffed bumblebees down a slide all morning with him. But from that to podcast recording about this prosperity law, such is life in the life of an entrepreneur mom. So let's get into this before I go on a weird tangent about gymnastics here. Okay. So this is a really, really fun and powerful law. And I know there was a part of me for so many years that was so afraid to release money and so afraid to flow things out there. And really, I mean, I was never like a hoarder's situation. We'll clarify here. But there were parts of me that were really afraid to let go of things and afraid to let things flow because I just didn't understand how this stuff works. And so the law of circulation is all about it's all about movement and how if we want something to flow to us, we have to be willing to also let things flow through us. So one of the most powerful analogies that I've grown to really love in my own life for how I relate specifically to money is like breath and thinking about it like air. And I don't know about you, but for me in my day-to-day life, I never worry if there's going to be enough air for another breath. I never stress about will there be enough for me to take in. And I also never worry about releasing a breath because I know there's always going to be more to take in. And so this is why I love looking to nature for examples of how are things meant to flow in our natural state? How are things meant to flow because that shows how things are meant to flow in our lives. And so when we can think about money, and I'm just going to speak specifically to money now, but again, prosperity to me is so much more than just money. It's really a state of being. Money is part of it. When we can think about it that way, there's this beautiful kind of co-creative rhythm that we create with the universe, with the people around us, where we're not in hoarding, we don't have a clenched fist, because you can even think just the visual of having a clenched fist. If you're watching the YouTube channel, you see my hand is here like this right now. Like there's no room, right? My fist is clenched. There's no room for anything else to come in. And so it really is a process of getting out of scarcity conditioning and practicing letting things flow and circulate in your life. And I want to share a couple points here that I found in an article on milliondollarmentor.net. So shout out to that website for some of the points that they make about this law of circulation. But one of the things they say in this article is prosperity is a state of your affairs where there's movement, where there's circulation and movement of love, joy, ideas, resources, and energy. And so in that circulation, there's both giving and receiving, and that things are constantly flowing both to you and through you and away from you. And this is something that Wayne Dyer speaks to with abundance as well, is that even when you learn how to use prosperity laws to create real true abundance in your life, it's still not yours. Like we want to really think about that, right? You come into the world with nothing, you leave with nothing. Everything else is kind of just borrowed and rented while you're here. So the more that we can remember that whatever we accumulate, we want to continue to let it circulate through our lives. I'm not saying you've got to go like give away everything right now or give away things you use or need. That's not it. But it's kind of that energy of non-attachment to the things in your life, if that makes sense. So the law of circulation is all about being in that energy of flow, letting things circulate to and through you. One of the other things they say in this article is the more you give out, the more momentum is added into this cycle of circulation, and the shorter the return cycle gets as well. Now, with that, though, this is the key, and this is the caveat, is you can't flow out with the pure intention of getting something back, because that actually kinks the hose. That's not the energy. The greatest joy in life that I have found as I've kind of, been on my path and my journey, the greatest joy really is giving. And when we can, and I know that may seem like, oh, like depending on what's going on in your life as you listen to this, you're like, yeah, I get that. And I'm kind of like working to figure out how to pay my team this month or how to pay stuff. So I get it, but I want you to really think about what truly brings me joy. Like at the end of the day, if I look back on my life and I look back on what were the things that were most meaningful, what were the things that really lit my heart on fire, like what are the things that I'm going to remember? It's usually those experiences where we're giving something. And the more that we can, whether that's love, whether that's giving an experience to someone else, giving a gift to someone else, making a donation that matters. So the more we can remember that that's the real gift and we give for that pure joy of giving, the irony of it is all of your material needs are met and more, and that return flow of circulation comes back to you multiplied and in a shorter amount of time as well. And, I can't remember if this is something I've shared on the show yet. It happened last week. So if I already shared the story, forgive me. I don't think I have, but I practiced this last week and I was almost speechless at what happened with the result. And I simply went and I asked myself the question. I was reading The Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer. And I asked the question based on one of the chapters, something to the extent of how can I be of greater, like how can I use my gifts to be of greater service in the world? It was something like that. And I got this list that kind of just downloaded in my mind of like 8 different things I could do. But one of the things really stood out and was something that I've been wanting to roll out as an initiative in our company for a while. It's a giving initiative, but it had been one of those things where I was like, oh, it'll maybe be next year, or it'll be as we get more things in place, more team in place, et cetera. But there was this nudge that was, no, it's time now. And I felt such energy around it and such excitement around it that really the rest of that day was spent whipping up a landing page, doing some outreach to people, letting them know what we were doing, starting to initiate this giving initiative. And it was just the energy and the excitement of the giving and what can I flow out? And I was blown away by the unexpected things that came back to me that day, things that I couldn't have initiated or imagined. People were like, this doesn't happen. If you've written a review for the podcast, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I know a lot of our listeners have, but I don't get a ton of emails of people who are like, hey, I just wrote you a positive review of the podcast. Here it is. Multiple emails came in like within an hour of people who had written a positive review of the podcast and given it 5 stars. And I was like, okay, that's unexpected and amazing. Later in the day, this introduction I could never have dreamed of comes through over text to this person who I could never have dreamed of connecting to with my current state of consciousness, totally out of the blue. And that's, Joe Dispenza says when things come in and they surprise you and it leaves no doubt that it came from something greater than you. It was that. But I literally sat there and I cried. Like I cried grateful tears and happy tears and odd tears. None of the giving initiative had been with the intention of receiving anything back. But the things that I received back were so beautiful and were so much greater than what I would have asked for normally, that it was such a reminder of the power of this law and the power of what happens when we are willing to circulate. And so the invitation here is, if it feels like there's any sort of stagnation in your life, in your finances specifically, if it feels like things just aren't circulating, what do you need to flow out? What is it time? Like you've got to start, you've got to initiate. You can't wait for more to come in. So what can you flow out right now? Can you give a donation? Can you give a compliment? Can you give some extra energy and effort and really lead with that impression of increase at work in your career? Even if it's not where you want to stay, can you still give more? right now? How can you get things circulating? Can you serve more at home? Can you serve more to your family? Can you do things more cheerfully? That's the invitation, is what can you circulate out without expectation of what's going to come back? But try it. And I promise you, if you implement it and you do it faithfully and consistently, you will notice that things start flowing back in greater amounts and in greater quality than you could have ever imagined for yourself. So that is the prosperity law of circulation. I love this one. It's such a beautiful one to go to if you feel stuck, or if you, again, if you just feel like things are stagnant in your life. So let me know what stood out to you with this episode. I'm at Elyse Archer on all socials. Super grateful for a review. I will say that because I talked about it on this podcast. Always so grateful for a review, and always so grateful as well for you to share this with your friends and colleagues. You can head on over to ElyseArcher.com to check out our programs and our resources to help you step up and scale to your next level of abundance and success in your life. And I will see you on our next